All right, so the recording has begun.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
Hi.
Just waiting for a few more folks. We're still missing Wendy, Amanda, Josh,
Just checking to make sure
Jason.
my audio is working and I'm just not, because I haven't heard anybody speak yet. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I still can't hear you. I saw your mouth move, Emily,
Oh
but I
no.
can't hear you. So I guess something's wrong with my audio.
We can hear you fine.
Emily, did you hear from anyone who couldn't make it today?
Yeah, Justin Robinson said that he will be half an hour late because he
Okay.
has some stuff. So he'll be here on the tail end of the meeting. But besides that, I've not heard anything. So just waiting for a couple more people to show up. Also, if it looked like I was laughing, it's because I didn't realize my parrot was in here with me because she's really quiet sometimes. And when I said hi, she went, hi, like kind of quietly in the background. Just my husband's probably gonna come up and grab her because she's quiet for long periods, and then sometimes she just really wants to be a part of things. So
I find that aspirational because my birds have never said a word on a Zoom. They're just beeping. But now,
right.
Maybe give it another. Oh, great. Amanda and Josh, perfect.
All right.
So I think that should be everyone, right?
I think so. If not, we'll find out during roll call. But we can just jump in. We don't have a lot of time today, so let's see. Can everyone see the slideshow?
Yes.
All right, cool. So welcome everybody to this sort of impromptu Management Program Committee meeting so that we can finish up the Eastern Oregon Steep Slopes package non-question portion. So first off, we're going to be doing attendance. Please answer present virtually. Seth Barnes,
Present virtually.
David Bugney,
Present virtually.
Adam Coble, Stacy Detweiler,
Present virtually.
Julie Furman,
Present virtually.
Wendy Gerlach,
present virtually.
Kim Kratz, all right, Casey Kula,
Present virtually.
and we know Jason Robinson is coming later. Josh Seeds,
Present virtually.
Amanda Sullivan Astor,
Present virtually.
and William Tucker. All right, so it looks like we're missing William Tucker and Kim Kratz today, and Jay Robinson, and is gonna come in later. All right. All right, so pretty quick agenda today. We just did our roll call. I put updates in there, but we don't really have any. Then there's going to be a moment for public comment. I did make sure that the Eastern Oregon Steep Slopes questions package was online. And then just approving the executive summary, and then we will finalize the letter portion, hopefully, of the Eastern Oregon Steep Slopes questions. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I remember meetings are public and recorded instead of minutes, and they will be available online. And please turn your camera on. It helps with discussion and with temperature reads, so number of fingers. And please mute when you are not speaking. So now I'm going to open it up for public comment. Looks like Will Tucker just joined us, so there we go. Oh, okay. Let's see. Cool. There's someone, Karina Martinez, who's a state forest policy intern at Oregon Wild. Nice to meet you, Karina. All right. Josh Seeds is here. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna continue on since I don't hear anything from public comment.
Emily,
Oh, yes.
you want to have Bill do roll call?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you want to have Bill Tucker participate in roll call?
Oh yeah, sorry, I kind of figured something like, oh, he's here, but yeah, well, can you say present virtually?
Present virtually.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you.
for the reminder, Julie. And then I think, yeah, okay, it's good. All right, now I'll continue moving on. All right, so the executive summary from the previous meeting, are you all comfortable with accepting it as it is?
So, Miss Emily, it's Will, and it doesn't show my presence last week, but I was there.
Oh, okay. I'll make sure that's
All right.
changed.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I had a few just small changes.
Yeah, let me bring that up actually. I'll share
Okay.
it and I'll make the changes right now. Let's see.
And if folks want to use the raise hand or just physically wave your hand, then Emily and I can do our best to call on you in order.
Okay. All right. So what else? And I'll actually, Stacy, if you want to call on people, since I can't really see the thing while I'm changing this, that would be wonderful.
Sure, I'll just jump in with the two small things I had, which is just changing it to June instead of May at the top. In the big title, yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I looked at the other two, not, oh my gosh.
I
there's so many
figured. It's all good. And then in the summary, it says no public comment, but we did actually have comment from Dan Brown just asking for meeting materials to be posted.
Okay.
Unless I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Let's
It was
see.
at the very top under summary, agenda item 1, and then summary roll call, no public comment.
Okay. Public comment. See. And that was who made that comment again? It was David.
Dan Brown from
Oh, Dan Brown.
EPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to say who it was, but no public comment wasn't accurate because we did get public comment.
Okay, cool. Any other changes before we?
Seth, I saw you come off mute for a second.
Yeah, I was just, that was the same one that I saw, was the no public comment.
Right.
Anyone else? Amanda?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I haven't caught this in the other ones. This is probably the way we've been doing it, but should we be notating who was not present from the committee as well?
Would you all prefer that? I think usually it's just been attendees from my understanding.
I think that would be useful. I think that's a good addition, just to note, you know, not in attendance. That saves you a step of having to compare the list of members to those in attendance.
Yeah, and the attendees include Dan Brown, but I don't think Dan Brown is an AMPC member, so.
No, I think it's including all of, yeah, he's not. So I think that needs to just be taken out of there. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's other, I mean, there was other people in attendance, so
Yeah, no,
feels like
that's
attendees should just include AMPC members and ODF staff.
agreed. That's
Maybe that's a good point, Amanda. Perhaps it should say AMPC attendees. I don't think we need to get in the habit of noting every single attendee that's not an AMC member. The importance is knowing which AMC members were in attendance and which ones were not in attendance.
Mhm.
all right. Does that look okay?
Yes, I think so.
And then I think Kim Kratz was also not in attendance.
Ah, thank you.
And I think it's Jason
Jason. Oh
Robus.
yeah, Jason, not Justin. Thank you. I am very bad with J names for some reason.
I don't think there's an N in the middle. I think it's Robison and
Robeson.
not Robinson.
Thanks. Appreciate the patience with the names. I'm still getting used to everybody's names.
Yeah, no worries.
All right.
Andy?
Hi, I just wanted to say, wouldn't it be helpful to like attach to this summary the text of the resolution we passed? I'm assuming that you are keeping a formal record of that, but since that's the most important thing about the meeting, it seems to me that would be useful.
Okay. Yeah, it does have the motion to approve action items in
Or
here.
I suppose, I guess what I'm saying is it would be helpful to see what it was we approved, like what the research questions that we approved look like.
Okay.
I mind that's sort of a key part of the resolution, but I assume you have a sort of a consistent process with this, but to summarize the most important thing that came out of the meeting, I would think the text of the research questions would be a key part to include in the summary.
Okay, yeah, it is actually included here. And also that's under agenda item number 2.
I think, Wendy, you're suggesting the actual questions themselves from the motion,
Yes,
sort of
that is
copying that and
exactly.
adding it to the agenda. And I know that maybe that's a question for ODF. The official minutes are the recording. So I know
Mhm.
there's sometimes a little bit of kind of trying to figure out what's appropriate to put in the written summary or not. But that does make sense to me, Wendy. I don't know if other folks have.
Okay.
Yeah, the most important thing I think is that somewhere ODF is keeping a very clear record of what the text was we voted yes on. So that's the most important thing.
Oh yes, we have a we have a record of every single project, like the questions and the steps and all the versions on Teams, and also like we put it on our I think it's our X or Y drive, one of the two. So there's multiple places where it's backed up.
Is it available to the public?
I am not sure on that, but I can see what I can do about that and look through it because again, I'm pretty new to this process. So
Anyway, thank you.
okay, cool. Yeah, no, I'll see about putting them together, but it's definitely been backed up.
Amanda?
Yeah, just really quick, Stacy, your name is spelled wrong under presenters for agenda item 2.
Thank you. I'll put
Thank
that
you.
on. Okay. Go back to that.
Okay, so I
So,
guess in
Emily,
the interest of time, I do want to move us through this. So let's put a pin in potential to include actual motion text in our meeting summaries and see if we can get an answer on that, if that's okay, Wendy. And just since we only have an hour together, let's move on to our heart of our discussion here.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
sorry.
so with those changes in mind, and I will change your name, Stacy, but with those changes in mind, would you all be comfortable with approving the executive summary from the June 24th meeting?
Yes, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up.
All right. Okay, great. Then we'll move on. All right, so I'm gonna hand this over, the control of the screen over to Brooke so she can open up our Eastern Oregon Steep Slopes questions package. There are just a couple areas that Seth, Stacy, and I made changes to, which I put a comment on. So I think it would be best to focus on those areas first. Um, and then we can look over the entirety of the letter if that sounds good to everyone.
That sounds good. And I guess just as a quick reminder to, we spent a lot of time sort of thinking through the questions, revised them, voted and approved on them last meeting. And we weren't able to get to the letter because there was a little bit of wordsmithing that we wanted to work through, wanted to do it offline instead of sort of taking up meeting space to do that. And that was the intention of this special meeting, was really to give a little bit of time, like Emily said. Seth and I and Kyle and Emily got together and worked on this a little bit more, with the hope of capturing the clarity that we were hearing from the group should be in this letter about the fact that it's a literature review. There's a little bit of confusion based on the statutory language around the full process for a research question. And that's kind of where we landed here. So I think our goal today is just to make sure that this language looks right. And if there are any concerns, to try to work through those so we can approve this letter and then approve the whole package. So with that, I guess I'll just open it up. Any comments, questions on sort of this first section here that Emily's got highlighted as a comment, which hopefully reflects what we were trying to convey. Wendy?
It's okay with me. My edits, my thoughts and suggestions mainly have to do with the rest of it. I'm going to put something in the chat, but I think this first part's fine.
Okay. Willie came off mute. Did you want to add something?
No, I'm trying to look at the pages in my hands. Wow.
Okay, fair enough. And I saw a thumbs up from Josh, so I'm not hearing much on this first one, so I think we can scroll down. Great. So the second, sort of what's on the screen there, that first paragraph, and then process summary with the 1, 2, 3 bulleted list. That was sort of what we spent some time trying to clarify. And I think we came up with this idea of sort of nesting literature reviews as sort of the visual to try to explain that in the initial scoping, there could be an assessment of literature review methodology and the ultimate outcome. Oh, Emily, am I not explaining that well?
No, you did a great job. I just wanted for everyone's understanding. I was speaking with like the INR chairs who they house the independent research and science team, and I didn't show them any of this, but I did talk about nesting literature reviews and use that terminology just because I was wondering if it made sense to anyone besides us. And they did say that it made sense, that it's an interesting process that doesn't doesn't hold as well for when the literature review is a final product, but that they have to have some sort of literature review in the initial process before sending, either doing it themselves or sending it out to contract for the final product, which is also a literature review. So just FYI, they interface with IRST, so at least someone understands outside of AMST.
That's great. Wendy, I'm seeing your comment in there, so I do want to get to that because I think it's sort of an overarching structural one. But any other maybe initial thoughts, questions on these changes here? Amanda?
Yeah, I'm just that first sentence of the highlighted portion. I'm just wondering if how much of this is from rule, Emily?
So all of these 1, 2, 3 are either exactly what the rule says or they are paraphrased. So like this part, like if it has a little number next to it that indicates that it's something that the rule specifies. Although I guess refined preliminary research questions is also part of it, but this is just because we mentioned, hey, in rule, and there's also already a little footnote on the complete process at the beginning.
Okay, I'm just with that first sentence that is part of the process for answering research questions. I don't know if that's the specific terminology used in the rule. I don't have it pulled up, but it seems like it's more, part of the process for like responding to the research questions.
Yeah.
So it's not answering the research questions.
Okay.
But if that's the term, if those are the terms used in
I'll
rule.
double check real quick. I'll talk more about the wording.
Julie, you came off mute for a second. Did you want to respond or?
No, I'm
Okay.
fine.
Okay. Well, while you're looking at that, Emily, maybe Wendy, let's jump to your comment because I kind of had a similar thought, and please jump in and describe this, but I think what you're saying is, there's sort of like two bulleted lists and they have slightly different numbering, but they're kind of saying the same thing. Do you want to describe your suggestion?
Yeah, to me, like the description of the process is confusing because it's three separate like bullet points or numbered lists without consistent numbering. And then the transition between them are a little unclear, in my opinion, because say at the end, it jumps into developing a research agenda involving other questions. So I think that could either be solved by simply just changing it to an outline that runs through the process all the way, or putting in clear headings in between at the top of each of those things. And I put in the chat what I think the headings could be. The beginning has to do with developing research proposals. Then the second part of those bullets have to do with finalizing questions, scoping the budget. And then the third part is really about integrating the question that's being developed with other questions, to develop a research agenda. And I guess biggest picture, I'm not sure the committee members themselves need to do this. I think the adaptive management program, i.e. ODF staff, could do the transmittal letters for us and simply either summarize the rules as they can, which is actually very hard, I know, or just provide the background resources. But since we are commenting on this, that would be my suggestion, just to have a clear outline, or use the format you have now and put a clear heading at the top of each of those three sections.
Thoughts, comments on Wendy's suggestion or suggestions, I guess? Seth?
If somebody else was going to reply to Wendy, go for it. I had it another.
I was going to reply to Wendy. This is Casey. First of all, Julie had a lot of thumbs ups. I think at least 5. But to Wendy's point, it could be that just this one of her points was that it sounds like rather than some attempting to summarize or paraphrase, to just cite to the rule, and then note here as a standalone sentence that while the end product of this package is a literature review, there will still be required a literature review as part of responding to this.
I guess for me, I sort of felt we're far enough down the road of doing this together. I say on this one, let's just finalize what we have, and my suggestions are in the chat. But I would like to sort of say for the future, to me, it seems a little inefficient for us as a group to be working on these, trying to summarize the rules and the bullet points. So I would say at the moment, I basically like this information presented. I just feel it could be structured in a way that's clear. And then maybe in the future, we can talk about and decide whether or not we want the committee to be wordsmithing descriptions of what the rules say.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
I like that. So I did have a comment, Stacy, regarding, I think, Amanda's one of your original points where you were asking what does it actually state in the rule in terms of the literature review. Is the literature review, so is the literature review in part of answering the question, or is it in setting up the question? Maybe that's not what your question was, but that's what I took away. So I looked up, it's under, and the rule of 629, 603, 0200, parens 4 parentheses, which is page 17 of that section of rule of the AMC, or the 603 rules for adaptive management. And in that it says, the IRST shall develop or direct through third party the development of a research proposal for each finalized research question. Each research proposal shall include a literature review that specifies the need for or the type of monitoring research commission studies or other means of scientific inquiry necessary to answer the finalized research question described in subsection 4B of this rule. Where I could see this useful, Emily, frankly, is in, we talked about it would be nice to know not just a literature review, but the strength of the information. There are ways to conduct literature reviews, right? In terms of like a systematic evidence review, where there is methodologies there that are used to sort of quantify the strength of knowledge in a given area. And that's where I could see maybe some justification around like a literature review that documents, here's, if you want us to answer sort of the strength of the knowledge in these areas, there are proven methods to do that. And here's the documentation, here's the literature review that shows the methodologies appropriate for describing strength of information. And then their proposal goes on from there to say, here's what we would propose to do, right? So I can see doing exactly what the process says here, even though it's sort of that nesting of literature reviews.
Amanda?
Yeah, and I added it into the chat, Seth, so folks could follow along. Since we're already at the point of sort of paraphrasing or trying to add clarity within our letter, we might look at saying something like, in rule, a literature review is necessary for the scoping or for the research proposal. In this case, a brief literature review that identifies the need for a more comprehensive literature review around this specific topic is what we're looking for, or something that clarifies, the purpose of this first literature review is really to identify why, a more comprehensive literature review, or I can't remember, Seth, what you called it, the systematic review.
Systematic evidence review.
Yeah, or, why something of that nature is really necessary for us to be able to answer the questions associated with the with this proposal, or something that kind of adds that extra level of clarity of how we're thinking about this literature, this initial nested literature review, to make it very clear of kind of what we're expecting and the level at which we're expecting it for that first proposal. I don't know if that makes sense, Emily.
Systematic evidence reviews are basically, and everyone's probably aware of this on this group, but I'll say it for those who might not be, are basically literature reviews kind of on steroids, right? I mean, they're a way, they use them a lot in the medical world, where they have a lot of studies that help quantify how much do we actually know about the effects of this, drug or treatment. And it's a way of sort of taking the bias out by upfront laying out the ground rules for how you're going to quantify that strength of knowledge, and then you go do the research and you do it in that, or you go do the literature review and you do it in that way that helps you at the end come to some level of relative knowledge, where you can say we know more about this and less about that, even though you may know something.
So can I just jump in here? Because I'm hearing the same sort of like, we need to make this more clear. So I'm feeling like we didn't quite hit the mark with this sentence. And I'm wondering, I think what you said, Amanda, I was trying to capture it as you were saying it, and I didn't quite get it down. Maybe could you take a minute and just like write something in the chat for us to look at? Because I think I'm not hearing disagreement with the sort of process step one. And then I also just wanted to circle back with your question. It seemed like the answering research questions part of that sentence does tie back to the rule. So I just wanted to make sure you were good with that. I saw your head nod. So if not,
Yeah, Stacy, I'll add something
Okay.
to the chat.
Okay.
It is in rule, as I put in the chat that directly from rule, but it is specific around answering the finalized research questions. So we might want to clarify that.
Okay. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind doing that, because what you said, I think was clear, and I think in addition we could add in here, but I don't want to sort of like wordsmith aloud with multiple people and not capture it. And I saw Casey and someone else had a hand. Maybe not.
I
Casey?
think Wendy was first, but her hand is down.
Okay. I think it's you.
Okay. Can we just do this while the end products for the middle sentence, while the end product, this this research proposal is literature review, a literature review is required as part of the process, or something along those lines. It just seems like they know the process. They can look at statute. We've got it, or sorry, rule. We've got the rule cited there. But I maybe nested is fine. I just want to make sure that again, like your proposal, I don't want them to get confused that the scoping proposal literature review is the thing that's sufficient for this, because obviously it's not from our perspective, but they have free reign to do what they want to get the first and the second literature reviews to us.
Yeah, I think that's along the lines of what Amanda said out loud. So I'm hoping she can help us in the chat and maybe combine those two. And maybe while she does that,
Can I
maybe
can I
just
chime in real quick, Stacy?
yeah.
I like Casey's idea of the
Okay.
simpler word, because actually I could see them coming. I mean, one proposal might be that could satisfy the rule. We're just going to do one literature review, and our end product is a literature review, and our process include a literature review. It's the same literature review, right? I mean, that could be that could be a proposal, and it does meet the rule. The rule requires a literature review to end up, to answer the questions. Well, if the question is to, you see what I'm, if the question is to produce a literature review, you can essentially satisfy this rule by producing one literature review, and you've met the end product and the anyway. I just think that it might work out better to have simpler language, because then you could essentially, you could get it allows for maybe a little bit larger of a gamut of proposals.
Emily?
Yeah, should we say that we're asking for two literature reviews, just that it's very clear, one to fit through the initial process and aid in creating the final product, And then the final product is a literature review that more directly answers the questions. I mean, maybe just saying that we need 2 literature reviews is going to help a lot.
I don't know that it does require two, frankly. Based on what I'm reading here in the rule, I think you could look at the rule and satisfy it with one literature review. I mean, I'm not trying to play any
Right.
games here. Like, I'm open to other people's interpretations. I just I don't want to put words
Yeah.
on the page here that don't exist, in terms of prescribing how the process would have to be. It doesn't, I know it's a unique situation where we're asking for a literature review and the rule requires a literature review. But I actually could see an avenue to satisfy this where you just produced one literature review.
Whoops, I'm doing the wrong thing here. Um, what I'm hearing is that, or what I anticipate is that the first, once we clarify the question, that the first product that we would get back from them would be setting up the rules and the structure for a systematic evidence review, but that would take more time, and that would be the final product then would be to actually do that review.
Wendy, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I was going to say that what Seth made and also Julie made sense to me. Like, to me, it seems like that the literature review might be described as a way of evaluating whether or not a research question that comes through from some venue other than statute has merits and is worth going into depth with. Well, the initial questions that we have here on this topic are set out in the report, so we're required to do them. So I don't really think 2 reviews are needed. The first one I would think would be more like, did the IRS using its judgment to figure out how to approach this question and come up with a proposal, but the end report is the review, and basically the question comes out of the statute/report.
Okay, I'm hearing some general acknowledgement that it may be possible it's just one literature review extended and built upon. It could be 2, kind of up to IRST. Seth?
Yeah, and I don't want to, thank you. I think you guys are kind of understanding what I was trying to say. I don't want to say that I'm not interested in the more robust review that would include a description of systematic evidence review type, that robust, but that robust type of literature review. I just mean to say that I think I don't want to tie the hands of IRST or the folks that are putting to say that this has to be done in this way. You have to have these 2 when the rule doesn't actually. I think you could look at this rule and you could find an avenue where you could just do one and satisfy it. And I think the reason why I think that's important is because I think that IRST needs latitude to be able to set this proposal up so that they can give us 2 proposals. I think what we're going to ask for is we want and this is what Terry always talked about, we want a Pinto version and a Cadillac version, right? We want you to give us one that would, just satisfy maybe the letter of what we're asking for, the bare minimum, and the other one that would be, a more robust review. And I think that the more robust review would come with that initial or that additional sort of justification around systematic evidence of some sort that you could then quantify the relative strength of the information that we think we know, versus another one that would just be, more simple and would just say, here's the studies that we came up with. So
Looks like Amanda finished her wordsmithing. Just FYI, it's in the chat.
Thank you, Amanda. And
May
then I
not be
said
perfect.
Josh. Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. That was very well spoken. I just wanted to say, like, I agree with everything Seth just said. In particular, not prescribing what they do, and if they look at it and say, we can do this as a systematic evidence review and crank it out, then that's fine. If they say we can do this as a more traditional academic literature review, then that's fine too. Or if they say, yeah, we need to set up a method and run it by you, or a method and an initial review, and then do a second, more detailed or systematic review, like that's fine too. But I do want to leave that up to them. The important point for us, I think, is to set up what the questions are and ensure that we're paying attention to what was required in SB 1501 and the rule.
Thanks, Josh. If folks haven't seen, Amanda put some language, and this would be a replace for number 2, or at least in the highlighted section of number 2. Oh, thank you.
Oh, and Brooke, can you just make sure that it may be easier to get rid of just replace the first sentence first, because we want to still have that 3 at the end of the first sentence that Amanda wrote, because it's
Oh yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
yeah, just sorry, I just want to make sure it was still there, the footnote.
Seeing at least one thumbs up in the chat. Give folks a second to read. Amanda?
Yeah, and maybe instead of calling out, a systematic evidence review, the we could continue to utilize the language of an assessment of methodologies. Might keep it more open for them.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, Brooke, I'm not sure if you're in there doing things.
I'm trying so hard to follow along. Like coming in cold.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also happy to share my screen and do this too, if that's faster or easier.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be. I'm still trying to figure out where to put this in and what parts to
Okay.
add and everything.
I
All
mean,
right.
if you
What
want,
do
you
you
can just
think?
replace the first sorry, sentence
Yeah, exactly.
Amanda did. Yeah, and just do that and then copy paste the rest over the rest of it. And that should do
Start
it.
here.
I wanted to mention that I have a concern about changing this, because I have concerns about telling the IRST that we want to have a limited scope literature review on this question, which is specifically picked out by the report and in the statute, to say that we want to circumscribe the extent to which they look into this question. Doesn't feel right to me. I would think that the question we are meant to pass on to the IRST, it's to be answered through a literature review. To me, for the committee, the AMPC, to step in and say, do a limited review, exceeds what our role is supposed to be. If the IRST itself in their scientific judgment were to say, we think a limited review is appropriate, I think that would be another thing. But to me, it is too much of intercession by this committee in what's basically mandated by statute.
Sorry to jump in here again. I'm being pretty tight on timing because we really do have limited time together here. And I think we're kind of going back and forth on the same question here. And maybe it's helpful just to go back to the intent, which is somehow we need to make sure it's really clear to the IRST that the rule says this specific process about a literature review and then a research question. And in this particular case, the outcome is a literature review. So is there some way that we can articulate that without sort of getting ourselves wrapped around the axle here on sort of how they do it in the details? I just worry, like, for this introductory letter, we're spending a lot of time on this, and we may not need to be as specific as we're trying to be here. Casey, Seth,
Yeah,
any
I just
thoughts
want
to
to say
help us?
I hear you. I think that in listening to all this, I like what's on the page now, the original proposal. How about that? Because I agree with Wendy. I don't want to constrain the IRST.
Seth?
I tend to agree too. I put that in the chat, but I have another suggestion, which would be, and maybe this goes along with my theme of simple is better. And and maybe it goes along with my theme of I agree with Wendy, her thoughts originally in this section, which is maybe we just strip out everything in purple here and it just says develop research proposals for each question. And we let them wrestle with what this looks like. And maybe this is where we bring this up in a we talked about potentially having a sort of an intersecting meeting again in the fall, and maybe we could talk about it there, but putting it on paper, maybe we're spending too much time with this. I don't know. It's just an idea. We just
That
end
was
with
kind of where I
research
was going, Seth,
question
too.
period.
Emily?
Yeah, just to that end, I know that INR actually, since they found out that I meet with Seth and Stacy after meetings, they actually asked me to maybe see if like it would make sense to possibly have a meeting between co-chairs like IRST and AMC, just for things like process, to make things, not making decisions about, what goes where, but just like, hey, how do we approach this? How much guidance do we need from rules to send to the IRST to help them? And how do we deal with like communication when they're unsure about how something works, so we don't have as much back and forth, just for working out things like that. And I mean, I can talk with you, Seth, and you, Stacy, about that more, but that's just something that I just wanted to bring up.
Okay, so I think I'm going to propose either two options. We keep it super simple, like Seth, you just said, and we just keep develop research proposals for each question and we cite to the rules. Or we go back to the original. Sorry, Brooke, this is a lot of back and forth and really hard to track. Or we go back to the original that we had sent out at the top of the meeting that I think folks were kind of okay with, but we're looking for more clarity. I think we tried to do that and we're kind of going down a bit of a rabbit hole. Does that make sense as two options to consider, very original or just strip it all out and keep it really simple?
I also made a slight change to Amanda's and put it in the chat that just says, ask the purpose of the initial literature reviews to identify the need for more comprehensive literature review rather than having the brief part about it. And that's what Brooke put in there. So just not sure what you all think about that. That might be a good in between.
Emily, oh, this case, Seth's about to say something, but real quickly, if we're gonna paraphrase yet again with a different paraphrase, it's just kind of like which paraphrase do we keep? That's my one concern.
Yeah, which is why I would again, I think stripping it back is probably the right answer here. We're going around in circles. I think Emily, in response to what you put in there, I tend to agree with those that are concerned with we're asking or we're directing the level of literature review, and we're maybe suggesting that it be less than comprehensive. I would really be hesitant to put any language in there like that.
And I see a quick show of hands, 0 to 5, how you feel about just keeping develop research proposals for each question, cite to the rules, and get rid of everything else, given that. Okay. I think I'm seeing 5s and 4s, so I'm going to propose for number 2 there, Brooke, if you can just delete all the highlighted text. And I think there was a footnote in there somewhere, but we can make sure that that OIR citation is in there. Yeah, perfect. Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to move us along or forward, I guess. It's still sort of this section, to Wendy's broader point. And I think you had 2 suggestions, Wendy. I like, given the timing and that this is always sort of already set up the way it is, adding the subheadings that you proposed makes sense to me, rather than trying to combine lists. Am I articulating that? Okay.
Yeah, I just think that would make the transitions clear between the 3 sets of bullet points.
So your first heading here was developing research proposals.
And
that
If
Oh,
we want
sorry.
if we want that to go here instead of like bullet points here. Sorry.
Um,
Here.
go for it, Wendy.
What I had in mind was you would have to change the language a little bit, but like you would put process for developing research proposals, right? So you have the process summary, and under that, you would put process for developing research proposals. Maybe you put it in bold or something like that. So it's clear that it's that introducing what follows. So do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Great. And then
And
you
then
had a second. Yep, go for it.
similarly, I would go down below to where you have your second list of things. Sorry, it's a little hard to always follow someone else's jumping around. I would myself take out the sentence about in consultation with AMPC, I think. Just one second. I'm not quite sure about that sentence, but in any event, these two things here listed, one, ABC, these all have to do with my second point, which is finalizing questions, scoping, and budget. So I would propose putting a heading up there. It could go, yeah, you could put right before in consultation with the AMPC a heading that says finalizing questions, scoping, and budget, because that's what follows.
Wendy, quick clarification and then jump to Amanda. Is this just sort of repeating what we've summarized above much more briefly? Or
what are you referring to right now?
sorry, so this section that's on the screen, developing the scoping proposal, and then the response within 45 days. I mean, that's essentially what we've just said above, right?
I didn't think so. And
Oh, okay.
I thought it was confusing. It is possible that I'm completely confused. But no, up above.
Sorry, maybe Amanda can help us, or she's got another question.
This one, it does say scoping, which includes the lit review, budget, and is lit review scoping a budget. Anyway, and then the third set of numbered bullets is the process for finalizing the research agenda overall. Right, where it says next step after IRSD scoping proposals.
You need to scroll back down.
Okay.
Yeah, and it looks like it does have that in the underline. Next steps after IRC scoping proposals, research agenda, implementation, and reporting.
Yeah, I suggest you put that like in a bolded heading so it's clearer. Because the key thing for them to understand here is that you were talking about the research agenda you introduced as a new concept, the idea that there are other questions that they will be putting together into total research agenda. So if they don't know what's going on, I think that's an important thing a bit of information to make very clear here.
Amanda, you had your hand up, and then I want to do a quick time check. I've been trying to get us to the hour to get a vote, but I'm concerned we may need 5 more minutes. Are folks able to stay a few minutes after? Okay, apologies. Try to keep us on. Amanda, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify that this kind of second set of numbered points that we were just working on is taken directly, it's verbatim from rule. And that's kind of what we were struggling with, was this 1A that we have here up above. So just trying to determine whether or not we need to include this, or if we do want to stick with the more simple version of develop scoping proposals as required by law and by rule. And if that's all that we want to say, and we don't want to get into this trying to clarify the literature review piece part of that, then maybe that's just what we say and we pretty much delete this whole piece. So just kind of wanting to get a taste for that from the group. And then I wasn't sure what in 1A, what number 1 is referring to, which number 1? Is that
You
the number
scroll
1
down, Brooke,
right
sorry.
above, or is that the number 1 up above from the first list? And similar to under 2, you know, says will need to be completed, number 2. And I don't know what number 2 that's referring to, because there's 2 lists that have number 2 in them. So that was a little bit unclear to me. And my last point and final point is, you know, the last sentence up above in that new purpose of this document section, we, you know, have that sentence that says that they'll be developing the scoping proposal or proposals to conduct the literature review. And again, I think the literature review is maybe confusing there now, because we've removed the pieces that try to clarify that there's a nesting literature review. And, you know, I guess we're maybe getting away from this idea that the final product is a literature review and there's going to be 2 literature reviews, and it's sort of complicating it now. So we just need to all kind of get on the same page with those items.
Agreed.
Perhaps it could be they could be bulleted 1, 2, 3 and ABC to avoid the confusion of which number 1.
For the second list, sorry, Julie, can you just walk through what you're proposing to change?
Well, since we have 2 different lists, we bullet one of them with numbers and one of them with letters, so that we're clear which bullet we're referring to when we use a number or letter.
So like here, number 1 would just be like big A.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Maybe
up top
change
here,
it.
should we do this part A, like ABC?
Yes.
Okay.
But then in that case, I think where C would now say number 2, I think number 2 is referring now to B, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the same exact sentence that's identified as number 2 below. So if that's the only number, like, I don't know, it's just, I think we need to keep one or the other list, because they're conflicting or they're duplicative.
Yeah, I think that was my point, or I was trying to ask that before, Wendy. It seems like what we're seeing now on the screen is our paraphrase of the process. And if you could scroll down, Brooke, it's essentially the same process, but now we've copied the rule language. And so I would just propose at this point, since we're citing to the rules and we spent a lot of time on the simplified version, that we just delete this section here and keep it really simple. So yeah, the finalizing questions from that, and just delete that
Delete
list.
all of this.
Yeah, because I think, and someone correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is the rule language we've cited above. We've summarized the same process, and this is really just repeating what was up above. So if you can delete that, Brooke.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that's getting us closer, Seth.
Did we just delete the deadline though when you did that?
No, it's still
Except
there,
for
number
number
3.
Sorry.
Oh,
I should delete this too, yes. Or at least.
What I just put in the chat didn't really copy right from what's on my screen. I apologize for that. It's rule, and I almost think we're spending way too much time on things that we, to your point, Stacy, like we're spinning our wheels trying to. The rule requires, and this is where I put in this is rule that I just put in there. The AMC shall develop a preliminary research question. The AMC shall succinctly specify this is our communicate. This is what the rules say specific to what we're supposed to communicate to the IRST about these questions. The AMC shall succinctly specify preliminary research questions that include the following: the type of research and monitoring per OAR, the rule, biological goals and biological goals and objectives or other issues being studied, and the objective of the research, a brief description of the context of the research questions, and other information the AMC deems necessary. I don't think a lot of these things that we're putting here don't really fit any of those. We're like trying to restate what the rule says, and I don't think it's accomplishing very much. So I think we should focus on, I mean, for the future, I think we should, for this document, maybe strip it back as far as we can and just really communicate. And then in the future, Emily, as you're thinking about doing this for future products, I really would lean heavily, if I were you, on this section 6030200 sub 3, which is what's direct, the communication that we're directed to have with IRST. I think there was a lot more put into this that's maybe superfluous and duplicative of rule, which is maybe confusing.
I do know that at least INR said that the IRST has appreciated having it easily accessible, having rule and having it cited. So at least citing it in our document, I think needs to continue, like, with the endnotes and things like that. But I do think an appendix is nice for them to have still at the very end, maybe not for the process itself, but for the rules that will be they'll be looking at that.
Even for the rules, though, I fear, and I said this earlier, and I noticed that they're still here. When you start citing rule, and I used to get into this in my past life working in DNR, I would direct our field staff whenever, the stewardship foresters throughout the state in Washington, do not get in the process of starting to cite specific, unless it's a rule that's like violated or something. But when you're communicating with people, these are the rules to follow when it comes to steep slopes or roads, because you're inevitably going to miss some. There's just too many, right? And so when you start getting in that process of here's all the rules you need to pay attention to when it pertains to this area, you need to be very careful, because there's rules on all sorts of sections that work together to achieve the outcome. And unless you're really comprehensive, you're going to miss some, and that's the problem with doing it that way.
I guess two things, because I think there's a lot of good comment and discussion, and we really, if we're going to get to a vote today, we should do that soon to be mindful of everyone's time. One is that we had discussed a joint meeting potentially in the fall with IRST, and I think this would be a really great topic to talk through this process and figure out what they actually need, what's helpful to them, and what we need to do to meet the rule, and maybe what we don't need to do. And, getting to agreement on the questions alone, I think is really kind of the heart of our work. And then do we need to spend as much time wordsmithing sort of the introductory letter, things like that, would be really great to consider, because I think it can take up a lot of time, and we've got a lot of things we need to cover and get to. So just a pin in that. I think it's really important conversation, but I think we should try to move forward with what we've got if we can, and acknowledge that we're going to make this process better, but it's not going to be perfect today. So can we just maybe scroll back up to the top? Because I think we made it through the whole thing here, and I just want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to look at what we do have. So Brooke, do you mind just scrolling back up to the top quickly? Okay, so we've got that paragraph, no edits. Can scroll down. Here we basically simplified and cited to the rule and described the process at a really high level, 1, 2, 3 steps. the deadline's still there, the key components are still there, that we're staying clear of sort of the messiness of trying to summarize it. And then if you can scroll down a little bit further.
So did you want to delete this next part, the AMC is, I'm not even sure. I think it's
I
referring to
think
it.
so, yeah.
It was all part of that bottom part.
Thank you. So we've now deleted the second section, which was the rule language that we've summarized above. And we're keeping, and I don't think there were changes to this last section, which is really the sort of forward-looking next steps part. And then our closing, which I don't think there were comments on. I'm hoping not. Maybe a quick show of hands, 0 to 5, where folks feeling about, is this looking good enough for now to be able to move forward? Or are there still major issues? Okay. Amanda, Julie, anything that needs to get you there? Amanda?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like editing on my side, and there's no way to put this in the chat. I don't know how to adequately communicate kind of these changes, but I think, you know, as I mentioned before, all the way up at the top, I think in the beginning piece, we just need to remove everything related to literature review. Because when you get down to the actual research questions, we wordsmithed that first paragraph under preliminary research questions, and we state that, you know, these questions apply east of the crest of the Cascade in Oregon are to be answered via literature reviews. Period. So we worked for a while at the last meeting to get to that piece, right? And we talk in here about, you know, wanting to have the robust conclusions from literature, you know, and yada, yada, yada. So I think we can be much, much, much more high level in what the ask is to the IRST in the actual letter. So I mean, I would suggest deleting basically a lot. And I did that in my in my version, but like the last sentence from what is the purpose of the document? I think even removing what is the purpose and just starting with dear members of the IRST and not having like this separate section of the purpose of the document, just go right into the letter. Like I think just not deleting all of that, just the purpose of this document, starting with dear members of the IRST, going into that, and then deleting that last sentence that says these elements will guide the IRST, you know, to conduct a literature review, because we already say that below, right? That is the supplemental information. This initial piece is really just, you know, what are we asking of you? And here is where it's found in rule, and we're going to cite it in rule. And it's that simplified 1, 2, 3, you know, refine the questions, develop research proposals, tell us how long it's going to take. And then beyond that, you know, do we need to include what are the next steps after the scoping proposal? You know, I don't even know that we need to include that. I think it adds additional confusion, especially that the first thing is talking about, you know, prioritizing amphibians, and this whole thing is about eastern steep slopes. So, I mean, I understand kind of, you know, why we might want to include that, but it seems like overkill to me. I would just focus this letter on what are the specific asks. I mean, at some point this is going to be, you know, in some ways unnecessary, because it's just the same process over and over and over again. What they really need, and what Seth said in what he highlighted in statute, is what are we actually required to give them? And it's the research. It's the preliminary research questions, right? We're not required to give them a letter other than, you know, it says any additional information that we kind of deem necessary. But I feel like we capture a lot of that within the piece that we voted on last week. So that's kind of my 2 cents, Stacy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think generally we're all on the same page. Like simple is better here. I'm a little hesitant to suggest another change, but if I did, I think what I'm hearing is just delete that purpose of the document section. Um, and maybe just take a quick temperature check on that. Otherwise, if we are going to vote on this, I'm going to need us to move into that very soon. Otherwise, we're going to have to kick this to August because this is, I don't want to shortchange the conversation if it needs it, but just to zoom back, that this is just sort of the framing letter. This is not the question. There's still going to be opportunity to talk to IRST. So it's important, but we don't have to get it perfect here. Casey?
Yeah, I really like what I see on the screen right now, which is a little
Okay.
simpler, but it still provides like a roadmap and a breadcrumb to make sure that everybody understands, including somebody who might be new to it and the public.
Other thoughts on this change here? Modification, I guess.
I'm fine with it. And I generally agree 100% with Amanda's talking points. And I think we should lead the conversation in that direction. But Stacy, I agree with you. We need to, if we can land this for now, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be good enough to start, and we can add this to an agenda item and hone it in our next go around.
Okay. Any last concerns? Otherwise, I'm going to ask for a motion to move forward with this draft. And I think, Emily, you had put together a draft motion for us.
Yes, I have. Brooke, I'm gonna take over the screen sharing if that sounds good to everyone.
One before somebody does make a motion, Emily, we had talked about this, and I scrolled through it, and it looks like it's still there. But we talked about taking the reference to those all of the rules being regurgitated there out. Is that happening, or the proposal that we voting on right now includes all of the?
It includes it right now only because of the discussion I'm aware of with like the INR and IRST, which I mentioned to you guys, saying like it really helps them having like that kind of appendix for context, because I mean part of it is also like context of the research question, and that's what's been done previously. So I don't know if we want to leave it as is for now, because we deleted it at our meeting, and then I talked with INR and they were talking about like how they want to make sure they're accessing the correct parts of rules and able to find things, and so that's why I added it back in.
Okay, so I haven't had, and I doubt anybody else on this call has had a chance to comprehensively go through all of those and make sure that they are appropriately cited. And it gives me some concern because there aren't the new rules as per the private forest accord for slopes with the DDFTAs and all those don't apply on the east side, and so I'm not sure. Did you cite those? Did you not cite those? And then the other question is, all the rules that do apply on the east side are all of them that have to do with what's, I'm losing the terminology now. It's not in the top of my head, but it's all of the public safety rules and high hazard location HLHL.
Mm-hmm.
Those do apply currently on the east side. So I'm not sure at this point. The questions that we're asking in a literature review aren't actually in direct relations to existing rules. We're asking them to look at the scope of the situation broadly to inform sort of a conversation about a potential for rules where there aren't currently rules. As I understand it anyway. That's with my background in the PFA. That's how I understand the impetus of this question. And so it might be a little bit awkward depending on what you're citing to cite existing rules that actually don't apply on the east side.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was just keeping the ones that Terry had originally placed in there, but if you all would be more comfortable with me deleting them again, I can do that.
Amanda, and then I'm gonna keep pushing to move us along here.
I know, I'm sorry. I was looking at them, Seth, and there's all sorts of stuff in here about yarding near waters of the state and ELZs and stuff that's completely irrelevant to the conversation around steep slopes. And the other note that I had just generally is the text is old text. These are all current rule, and it still has the green bolded and the blue bolded of what goes into place July 1st, 2023 versus what goes into place January 1st. And that complicates it because it's drawing your attention to certain things that are just simply rule now. So I would suggest, removing all of that formatting and keeping it the same, but it includes a lot more here than would be necessary. I could see an opportunity and a benefit for them, for IRST having what's currently in rule for steep slopes on the west side, I guess, just to understand that, but I agree with Seth. I mean, there's no reason if we do end up in a situation where we need to do something on steep slopes or identify new rules for steep slopes on the east side, there's no reason it may not look the same as it looks on the west side. So it kind of flavors the thought process in a way that's probably unnecessary.
My suggestion, Emily, would be taking it out for the purpose of brevity in this conversation and being able to move us to a vote today. And then we could table this for a conversation with IRST, that future conversation about this document, and we could talk specifically about this issue and whether it would be useful for IRST to have somebody from the forest practice program come in and maybe at that point, build sort of a 1-page or 2-page or 3-page or whatever with reference to the rules that do apply east and west side and give them more of that context so they can build that into their proposal. But I would suggest that we're not there on that part of it here. It hasn't been, very well vetted. So
yeah. So that would be from Appendix 1 down, Brooke, from my understanding. So if you could scroll down to Appendix 1. And then we can just delete everything after that because that's all just rules. It's a bit down.
Can I totally
There it
agree
is.
with that too?
Go
I would suggest that
go up a bit more. There we go. I think it's
All of this.
Just all the way down.
Yeah, everything after that.
Yeah, it's a lot. So just delete everything.
All of this way.
Yeah, just keep going.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the last thing in the document, so you can just get rid of that. Yeah, sorry I put it back in there. I just wasn't sure if it was something we just needed to have a quick thing about because I know, it can be important. So
I think it would make sense, and maybe when we reconvene with IRST or talk as co-chairs, just having, someone from ODF or some expert staff come in and describe it and talk about the nuances. I know Jeff and Kelly are also super familiar with it, but I agree. I think a lot of the complexity is lost, and I would worry about missing key components by artificially highlighting some other elements. So
gotcha. Okay.
Unless if anyone is opposed to that, please speak now. Wave your hands. Okay. With that, awesome. Thank you, Emily. I'm hoping that we have well discussed our questions and our framing of those questions. Again, intention is to try to get a solid document. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to get some more feedback from IRST about what they need and interactions and go from there. So anyone like to make a motion? Oh, Wendy. Awesome. Thank you. Second.
Will second.
Do we need to read the motion? Sorry, I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I can read it if you want. Yeah, so the motion is to approve the non-question portion of the Eastern Oregon Steep Slopes Research Questions Package. The Adaptive Management Program Committee approves the non-question portion of the Eastern Oregon Steep Slopes Research Questions Package as edited at the July 2nd, 2024 meeting to be sent to the RST, as the questions portion of the package was approved at the June 24th, 2024 meeting. The entire questions package will be sent to IRST between July 10th and July 12th, 2024 to allow the IRST 45-day response window to overlap two IRST meetings.
Final questions, comments, discussion.
So
Casey?
sorry, Stacy. You're like crestfallen. So I just put there's not page numbers on V3-1 or whatever, but there's a little note in there that says there are no HCP related rules for steep slopes in Eastern Oregon. And I just was trying to think, is that accurate to what we want to say, or do you want to say there are no OFPA related? Or like are people okay with that? Just for some reason it struck me as uncomfortable. That's at the bottom of it's just below the goals, the BGOs that are identified.
Yeah, I don't know that that's accurate. Thanks for flagging that, Casey.
Yeah, I agree.
If you could remove that text, I think that would be better.
Cool. I'm fine with it being removed, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, that's a great catch. Thank you, Casey.
Where is that located, just for Brooks' awareness?
Yes, it's at the very bottom in goldenrod color of the listed biological goals and objectives section. I apologize, you don't have page numbers because it's
Yeah, sorry.
no, yeah, it's it's at the very bottom of B2, B.2.
Okay. You got that, Brooke? It's under B and then B.2, and you scroll down. Gosh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that, Stacy.
No, good catch. Thanks. Brooke, did you capture that? Does that make
Yes, so
sense?
I finally located where I was at. So you want me to delete which part? Sorry.
It's right before B3 starts. It's the note, there are no HCP related rules. Just
Okay.
those two sentences.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. I think,
Yeah.
unless there's further discussion, Seth?
If I could just say for the record, the reason why that needs to be deleted is because it's not completely accurate the way it's worded. We don't need to go into any more detail, but just for the record here, I think that's important to state.
And next time I'll do an hour and a half meeting for for a special one, because
I really thought we could do it. Sorry.
I did. No, I did
tried.
too, but we all tried. It's okay. I mean, it's important that these things get figured out.
Wendy?
That said, I renew my motion with that adjustment made.
And do we need a second?
I affirm my second.
Okay. Final discussion? Okay. I think we can move to, Amanda.
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at these other pieces. I hadn't looked at this in a while. If you look, yeah, there's no page numbers. So if you keep scrolling, which I must not have done, underneath the BGOs, it goes into context around the PFA report for timber harvest on steep slope. And beyond that, has the B.5 other information the AMPC deems necessary for the IRST's work. And this is all from our FRIA stuff. The roads package.
Oh, yeah. Well, since it's other information necessary, could I propose we just delete that and we don't need to provide other information necessary?
So just
So it's
delete
not
B5.
correct.
Delete B5. I agree with that. Another good catch.
Okay, I got that deleted.
Thanks, Brooke. Does that work, Amanda? That just seems simplest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's fine. I hadn't noticed that, and I'm sorry. I apologize.
I think we all missed that. Yeah, further reason to get a strong template. And I know Terry's been working through this and we're figuring it out every time we go through one of these. But there's a lot of detail.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we need a yet again
renew-
amended?
I renew my motion again, taking out, adjusting it further to take out B5.
And I'll remain seconding the second, which was the second.
Thank you. Okay. Final call for discussion. And if not, Emily, could you call a roll call for us?
Yes. All right. I will do that. Okay. Seth Barnes,
Yes.
David Bugney, which I know he said he had to step out. So that's a no. That's just he's not here. Okay. Stacy Detweiler,
Yes.
Julie Furman,
Yes.
Wendy Gerlach,
Yes.
Kim Kratz, which not here.
Kim's not a
She
voting.
is a voting
Kim's-
member.
Oh yeah,
He's
you're
not
right with
voting.
Noah. You're right. Apologies. I'm just going through the list. Casey Kula,
Votes yes.
Jason Robeson,
Not present.
Not present.
not present. Okay. Josh Seeds,
Yes.
Amanda Sullivan Astor,
Yes.
Will Tucker.
Yes.
All right. The motion passes. So
Great.
sending that off. Yeah, and Brooke, if you can just send that to me, I'll just, accept changes and make sure there's not any weird, things that happen. But then we can send it off
Sounds good.
during that time period of the 10th through the 12th. So to IRC. All right. Oh, one thing I meant to say, I should have done this at the start, but Brooke has accepted taking over for David. It's a big ask, like having to change these documents, especially when it's like all online too. I know it's hard. But she has I'm very happy that she's accepted to do that in the future. So just wanted to let you all know that. So thank you, Brooke. We appreciate
Great.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke.
Thanks, Brooke.
You bet, guys.
All right. Are we through our agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Really good discussion. I'm glad we took the time to get through it. Good changes, and I think it's a better product. And we'll have more time to talk to IRST in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Thanks for
right.
leading us through it, Stacy.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.